If you want to know, like, my response though to some of my critics, I got this comment that I've been chewing on for a while where they say that you live in a trailer park. What are you doing criticizing other people from the vantage point of material success and wealth and everything? And I wanted to get at this, like, really get at the underlying frustration that I feel. I went and I traveled down to Texas recently. I spent some time there. I spent some money there in the state. I contributed to the local economy, but I want to say this about the whole thing. As somebody that was just visiting, I mean, there's a lot of just a celebration of ignorance that is going on in the South. You have this whole, like, deliberately misspelt signs that are going on, grammatical incorrect language. I mean, I don't have perfect grammar, but I make at least something of an effort to use it correctly. But, down there in the South, there's almost like this glorification of this just bad, bad grammar, bad spelling, bad punctuation, like everything. Like, they don't give a shit, and it percolates up even to the corporations that exist down there in the South. It's not uncommon to see LITE on somebody's actual corporate branded logos instead of light, LIGHT. No, I mean, they have to use, that that language. You see this sort of thing all up and down, and then you see the sheer number of pickup trucks with people, riding shotgun with, and a tractor trailer, hanging out over the edge with their hands out the window. You see, the truck is beat up. It's practically broken down and everything. It's a few years old. A bunch of things about it seem to be broken. It's sputtering, all of this smoke out the back end of it and everything. And that is kind of the image that everybody has in their mind when they go down to the South. And I think, like, the biggest frustration I have about the South is that, there's this stereotype that exists about them as a bunch of inbred hicks that are that are dumber than a bag of bricks, and they relish in it. It's like, you you would think that a population of people would at least know what the rest of the country thinks about them and try not to so perfectly embody the stereotypes that people have about the area, but they sit there and they have this whole mentality of, oh, screw them, they don't like this way of life, then we got to be proud of it, we've got to embrace it, they've insulted our way of life, so you know let's embellish it even harder and take those insults and wear them as a badge of honor, mentality down there in the South. It's got this stubbornness to it that's just such a, whole thing. And, people talk about me living in the trailer, but, and they do, like, on Google Maps, they'll call it the trailer park, that you're getting and turning out of when you're using your Prius to get out of the damn thing. But they're a manufactured home. I mean, I do. I live in a manufactured home, but, I look at it and I look, like, at everything, and it's like my critique is that at least people here like to read, books. At least there isn't this whole, reading is for fucking losers mentality going on in this, house. At least there isn't you know, the whole mentality of intellectuality is for fuck fucktards going on here. You're a faggot if you're an intellectual or smart about anything. There's none of that. There's none of that kind of adolescent, bullshit, bullying going on in this house. And it's like, I look at the South and I think it doesn't make sense to single out the South because there are some areas in the North that are just like this. But, growing up as a kid, my dad traveled a bit as, a software, person and a consultant for the industry of software. And so at one point he ended up finding himself parked in Omaha, Nebraska when I was about 14, and I had to go through Morton Middle School, which is, got this stellar reputation in the region as a magnet school, but it, like, going there as somebody that had come out of it, I wanted to blow my fucking brains out going through it. I mean, yeah, it's this reputation, but that reputation is based on the perspective of only people from the fucking area, you know? And the problem with the people in Omaha in such a huge way is that, the people in Omaha, to really put it in plain English, when you've lived in one place for your whole life and you've never been outside it, you often lack context to compare it to. And while having a context to compare a style of life to another region would potentially be spoiling to somebody and would make them potentially find themselves in a situation where they're in Omaha and they find themselves asking what in hell they had done to piss the powers that be off so badly that they would end up in this fucking hellhole of a city. Like, you don't, like, while it does add to conducive depression to have that context to compare things to, it's like, it's also a form of intelligence, and it's like, you look at Omaha, and if you're not into like football, if you're not in at all, if you're one like me, where it's like, oh, sports too. I've got video games. Fuck sports, you or music and country unless it's been mixed with pop, and you've got this mentality of just you're not a Cornhusker fan, you're not into that. You're still gonna be subjected to constant you know of that people saying "Go Huskers," you're not going to be able to dodge having to observe some sort of conversation take place about what was going on in the football game. I mean, it's going to become so ubiquitous and in your face, it becomes impossible to be unaware of it, even though you're not into it. It's not your thing at all, and that sort of thing goes on there, and you're going to have drunken idiots screaming about the Huskers games and hooliganism going on in the downtown area about all of it and all of that stuff. The streets in the area are run down as fuck. There's potholes everywhere that hasn't been addressed because local tax policies just have not found a good way to actually get the population to actually pay to fix the fucking potholes in the roads that exist. So it does absolute murder on people's vehicles going through Omaha. It's a rundown city. It was a rundown city when I went through it. Morton Middle School is actually pretty trashy for a magnet school. To be completely honest with you, you had to stand out there in the bitter cold waiting for the school to open. And then when you got in, by lunchtime, you were not able to get up and walk around at lunch. You were not able to do much of anything at all. You had to sit straight in that area in the seat. You couldn't go anywhere because, of course, the history has a history of racial tension and violence between whites and other groups of people, and so because of that, they keep everything and they run everything like a fucking prison in case. In order to prevent any sort of fight from breaking out, and you run into this totalitarian regime, and it's like where I come from. For the kids, that kind of thing, it happened every now and then, but it wasn't so common that the schools felt it necessary to actually keep everything on that intensive lockdown. So of course at lunch you could get up and walk around and at least had that freedom. And it was like going through like Evergreen Middle School, like those I think if you've heard me like rant about Michelle Obama before, it was because, as a child, the unhealthy option of going to the soda machine and putting $1 in and getting a Dr. Pepper going through that school was like the only thing that was any enjoyable at all about my entire time at more at Evergreen Middle School coming up. But at least I could get up and walk around to the damn machine. Whereas in Omaha they may have had a school there, but no, not a school, but a pool in the school. But and it was in the lunch factory. It was in the lunch area and everything. There was a door inside that you had to go into and everything, and it may have been like that impressive and everything, but of course you just had to stare at it at lunch and you wonder about when it was ever actually used. The one thing that I would have liked in Omaha as an adult, though, is that there's so little to do, especially if there isn't a Cornhuskers game going on, that people fuck like rabbits, like because everybody's bored to tears. That's like the only upside to living there at all in Omaha. Like I'm serious. Like it's just a it's an awful, awful place to find yourself stuck in. And if you're from the area, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to like put down the place that you're in, but you've never been else. Like a lot of you locals to Omaha, Nebraska, have never been outside the area. I mean, you've got a lot of pride in being from there and everything, but take a look and gander at the rest of the country and the way that come out west. Come visit us in the western states, on the west coast. Come. I don't care if you come to Portland, come to Seattle, come to Los Angeles, LA. Come visit some of the cities and see how things are out here. You'll find that the people that have any semblance of a clue how it is anywhere in the rest of America find themselves wanting to blow their brains out in your region. I mean, it's just it's like my point of criticism about all of it is just like look at like Ryan and these guys that are venerating the South and everything and you know like pumping it up as if it isn't kind of trashy and everything, and what they do when they do it and everything, even though it's intensely dishonest, it's like you know when I have critics that talk about me living in the trailer park, it's like, yeah, well, at least I have some sort of aspiration that wants more, that knows that, this is not that great of a position to be in, that, is aspiring to make money through selling on Amazon and has aspirations to get out of the damn park at some point, Like, at least I've got ambitions to try to get, out of here. At least I don't sit here and think that, the set of circumstances that I find myself in is so fucking great and everything, and that, there's nothing at all to be embarrassed about living here, and that, there's nothing at all to look, to find myself shaking my head about my set of circumstances at. And I mean, I'm dissatisfied. I'm not happy here. Okay, like I'm not in a I'm happy in hell type situation that these people that I'm criticizing find themselves in. And that's, I think, my biggest and grandest frustration with arguing with these right-wing fucking like losers here on this platform, which is, like they've got this glorification of the red states, and it's like the red states actually kind of suck, and when they call it flyover country, it's because it really is flyover country. There is fucking nothing to do there that is worth fucking doing. It is boring as fuck. And I mean, I hate to be, the elitist coastal liberal, that they've got this, mentality of being a latte drinking, coastal elite, but I live within a reasonable amount away from the Oregon coast, and yeah, it's when you go in and when you go into those areas, it's like, I'm gonna have to get an e-reader and, books to read and bring my computer so that I can access the internet, because otherwise I'm gonna be bored to fucking tears here. Yeah, because there ain't nothing to fucking do except turn inward, and that's how I feel in the biggest way, and it's why like I'm clapping back at my critics, in that my frustration is that for me, unlike me, it like I don't think people like these southern people that are so proud of where they come from have any sense of shame about the trashiness that exists in the South. They want to sit there and hold it up and glorify it as if it is something worthy of being glorified. Like, they look at their poverty and they think, "I'm gonna wear it like a badge of honor." And I think that that's what I can't stand about everything there. You've got these people that have this I'm happy in the hell that I've created for myself, background that's going on there. Like, if you insult the South and you say something shitty about it, what people will do in reaction is basically embody the stereotype as intensely and intently as possible, and then wear it like it's some kind of thing to be proud of, that you got insulted by some Yankee from the North. Like, oh, they're calling this trashy. Well, I'm gonna go out of my way to be as trashy as possible, and then say that being trashy, that you say that it's trashy, like being trashy is a bad thing. And that's the mentality that I'm up against when it comes to a lot of these people. So, when I look at Upchurch and I look at, the culture down there, down south, like, that's basically the reaction I'm having. Wouldn't you love to get the fuck out of this place? There's a whole world out there. There's a whole world of higher culture than the shit that we're experiencing out here in this rural cesspool and backwater, that we find ourselves stuck in. In fact, there's a whole, there's a whole universe out there to be explored, you know, outside and off this fucking rock. Like, I just, I have no idea how you find yourself in such a state of dysfunction without any sense of shame about it. None of it makes any sense. You go and you look there and you've been there and you've come back from Texas recently and you can see that Southerners can't even manage to spell out light, Light. It's always Lite. You look at this and you look at the glorification of ignorance that's going on. And in fact, it rises up to the ranks, to the level of even the corporations themselves will, engage in this grammatically incorrect and deliberately misspelt language of the way that their own signage is misspelled, as far as their corporate branding. At least I, look at my set of circumstances, look at the trailer park and think, Jesus Christ, I need to raise the money so that I can get out of this fucking place. But I don't detect any of the same mentality. There's this, I'm aware of how fucked up my community is and how the people in the area behave and that they resent anybody that's successful and manages to pull out their own bootstraps up, or get out of this fucking hellish situation that we find ourselves in. They try to drag anybody that actually starts getting some upward lift back down to the ground with them. There's none of that shit. It's always, I see that there are all these problems with the community that I live in, but I'm proud of where I come from. Despite the fact that the locals are a piece of shit, just, that treat people like me that are famous and successful and everything like we're garbage, because they resent us, because they think that because they come from such trashy material circumstances. The moment that I manage to get some upward lift, they start laughing out at me. you know I don't know why Ryan himself can't come to the obvious conclusion that the town that he lives in is a pile of crap town in the South that isn't even worthy of him, living there as a homeowner and shelling out the tax revenue that he has to pay for the region. He should just get the hell out and let the goddamn place burn to the ground. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents.